we will continue the presentation of CSEC Multiple Choice Practice Paper 2 by taking a look at the third set of 15 problems. Part C. Those questions will be from number 31 to number 45. The width of a block of wood with rectangular cross-section is x centimeters. Its height is 2/3 its width, and its length is 4 times its height. What is its volume in centimeter cube? We may begin with a representation of the rectangular block. There we have it. The width is said to be x centimeters. So this is where we will call the width, and that is x centimeters. The height is 2/3 of the width. This means 2/3 of x. So the height will be 2/3 of x, which is 2/3 x. Its length is 4 times its height. We will multiply its height by 4, and of course that will be the length of the rectangular block of wood. So we have taken an image of the height that we have here, and we are multiplying that by 4. So 4 times the height. There we have it. Volume is equal to length multiplied by width multiplied by height. To find the volume, we will multiply all of those. 4 will act like a fraction whose denominator is 1. So we will make use of fractions, and we will attempt to write the numbers that we have there as fraction. And any number may be written as a fraction with a denominator of 1. Multiply the numerators, and we will have 4 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2, and that will give 16. Then we will multiply the denominators. 1 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 3 will give 9. And finally, we multiply all of these x's. We have 3 occurrences of x. So we will have x multiplied by x, and that will give x cubed. So 16 x cubed divided by 9, or 16 over 9 x cubed. There we have it, 16 over 9 x cubed. The correct option is B. Okay. The mean of 10 numbers is 58. If one of the numbers is 40, what is the mean of the other 9? We may just look at the options and know that the answer is 60. And later I will attempt to explain how. The mean of a set of entries is found by finding their sum and dividing the result by the number of them. We need to find the mean of the 9 that remains. It is necessary to find their sum. We will begin by finding the sum of all of the 10 entries. Right. So we need to find the mean of the 9 numbers that remain. We need to find, therefore, the sum of those 9 numbers, because we know that is 9. We don't have any problem with the number of them. So if we find the sum of them, we will divide the result by 9. Again, the mean is found by dividing the sum by the number of entries. We have the number of entries and the mean. To find the sum, we will multiply them. Right, so we have the mean and we have the number of entries. So in order to find the sum of them, we will multiply the mean by the number of entries, and we will get the sum. Of course, if we transpose by dividing by 10, we will get the mean, which is 58, is equal to 580, which is the sum, divided by the number of entries. So in order to determine the sum of the entries, we multiply the mean by the number of them. We were told that one of the number is 40. And of course, that is not to be included in the new mean, because if 1 is 40, what is the mean of the other 9? So we need the mean of the other 9. We will subtract 40 from the old mean. We'll get 540. Now that 540 is going to be the sum of the other 9. Therefore, the mean of the other 9 will be found by dividing the sum of them by the number of them. So dividing by 9. The answer is one of your distractors. 540 is of course one of your distractors. We have it right there. What we have there is the sum of the other 9. In order to find their mean, we need to divide by the number of them. So let us do that. 540 divided by 9 is equal to 60, so that is the new mean. The number that we are taking out is relatively close to the mean. The new mean must therefore be close to the old mean. So we are taking an average. We have taken an average, and the average is 58. We are taking out one of the numbers that we have in the average. So we are taking out, and it was given to us that we are taking out 40. Because 40 is very close, or relatively close to 58, it is very close to the average. If you take it out, the new average will be close to the old average. The only number that may be considered to be close to 58, which is the old mean, is 60. So that is the correct answer. Also, the number that was taken out is smaller than the mean. So it is dragging down the mean. So if you take it out, the mean will move up. So if you take out a number that is below the mean, the effect of that number is to pull the mean down. So if you take that out, the mean will go up. So we imagine that if we take out 40, which is less than the mean of 58, the new mean is a little bit higher or a little bit greater than 58. So we have done that, and we realize that the mean is actually 60, which is somewhat greater than the old mean. So this will cause the new mean to be larger than the first. Taking out a number that is smaller than the mean will cause the new mean to be greater than the first. And of course, because the number that we took out was relatively close to the mean, then the new mean is going to be relatively close to the old mean. And of course, that is why we were able to select 60 as our correct answer immediately. The item which occurs most frequently in a frequency distribution is called the what? The one that occurs most frequently. The median is the middle entry in a sorted list. In the case of an even number of entries, there will be two middle entries. The median will be the mean of the two middle entries. The mean is found by dividing the sum of the entries by the number of them. And we are at B. So we have discussed the median, which is the middle entry. And if we have an even number of entries, we will have two middle entries. We'll find the median by adding those two entries and dividing by 2. The mean, of course, we have just taken a look at the mean. The mean is found by dividing the sum of entries by the number of them. What about this one, the standard deviation? The standard deviation tells us on average how far the entries are from the mean. So it is a measure of spread. The standard deviation tells us on average how far each entry is from the mean. So what do? We find the distance of each entry from the mean and then divide by the number of them. That makes a lot of sense. But let's see why it will not quite work. The mean is subtracted from each entry. That is how we find the distance from each entry to the mean. So the mean is subtracted from each entry. Since entries fall above and below the mean, the results will be a mixture of positive and negatives. Right, the mean is average quite like a middle, right? So if it is somewhat in the middle of the entries, not necessarily physical middle, but say somewhere in the middle, in a logical way, it is in the middle of the set of entries. If we subtract that mean from all of the entries, some of the entries are smaller than the mean, some are larger than the mean. What will happen? We will have a mixture of positive and negative signs. So when we try to find the average of those distances, when we add them, the result will be 0. So the average will therefore be 0 because of the positives and negatives. How do we avoid this? To avoid this, the differences are squared. And you know that when we square numbers, all of them are positive. The results are positive. Whether you square a negative number or a positive number, all of the answers will be positive. And that is how we eliminate the problem of having to do or having to deal with the mixture of positive and negative numbers. So to avoid this, the differences are squared. Then the average is taken. So after we square, then we take the average. So how do we find the average? We find the sum and divide by the number of them. In taking the average, we divide by 1 less than the number of entries because the mean may be one of the entries, and we do not imagine that the mean can be any distance from itself. Right? So in finding the standard deviation, we do not use the total number of items. So if we have 100 items, we divide by 99 because we are assuming that one of the values is the mean, which is going to be no distance at all from itself. Right? So that one will not contribute to the spread. So we take that one out. When the average is taken, the result is called the variance. Do not forget that the average that we have taken is an average of what? Squared numbers. So when the average is taken, the result is called the variance. Remembering that we squared the differences, we then find the square root of the variance to give the standard deviation. So in the end, because we squared to avoid the positives and negatives, we still have to compensate for that in the end. So we find the square root after we have found the average, and that gives the standard deviation. The mode is the entry that occurs the most times. We may have more than one modes. 2 modes will cause the set to be bimodal. A set may be polymodal. That means we can have quite a few number of entries occurring the most. So the mode is the one that occurs most frequently and may not be just one. We may have 2 or even quite a few more than 2 entries occurring the most times. What is the area of the shaded region? Of course, we are trying to find the area of this slim triangle. The area may be found in either of 2 ways. First one, find the areas of the 2 right-angled triangles and find the difference between the 2. So we can find the area of this right-angled triangle, the small one that we see here, and then the area of the large one that we have right here. Right? And then find the difference between the 2 of them. Or we may find the difference between the heights of the 2 triangles and multiply the result by half of the base. So the difference between the heights and multiply the result by half of the base. And let's see why we are able to do that. Let us first find the area of the small right-angled triangle. So go ahead, find the area of the small right-angled triangle. So that is the small right-angled triangle. Area is equal to half base times height. What is the base? The base is from 0 to 6, so it is 6 units. And the height is from 0 to 4 for the small one, so it is 4 units. All we need to do, base equals 6, height equal 4, substitute those values into the formula, and presto. So half of 6 times 4, we're going to take half of 6. Half of 6 is 3. So it is the same as 3 times 4, which is equal to 12 centimeters squared. The next one will be analogous to that one. So the larger triangle, we are going to attempt to find its area also. And no doubt the formula is there. Do the same thing. When we have problems or we are solving or making calculations that are similar, we may use analogy, proceeding in a similar way when the problem that we are solving is similar to the one that we have solved. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel. So the base of this one is 6 centimeters as before, but the height is all the way up to 5 centimeters. Do the same thing. Half of 6 is 3. 3 multiplied by 5 is 15. So the area is 15 centimeters squared. Find the difference between the two areas. That's very simple. 15 minus 12 is equal to 3. That's 3 centimeters squared. The correct answer is option D. Same problem, different approach this time. Let us subtract the two areas and see why the second method will not only work but is theoretically accurate. So we are not using half base times height, the formula again. We are using the first occurrence of numerical values. What we have received after substituting the values, we'll get a half 6.5 and we get a half 6.4. Now what do we know? In the expression we can see a common factor, or we can see common factors of half and 6. Notice that is half 6, half 6. So we can factor half 6 out. Right. And what is left inside? 5, 4, which is, of course, this sign. We cannot neglect that. So we have 5 minus 4. So in the first term, 5 remains, and in the second term, 4 remains. So a half of 6 is 3, and 5 minus 4 is 1. So we will end up with 3 multiplied by 1, and that will be equal to 3. So that is 3 centimeters squared as before. Right, and that is why we said the second method, we could have found half of the base, which is a half of 6, and multiply that by the difference in the two heights. So half of the base multiplied by the difference of the two heights, as we have them right there. We should have seen that the triangles have the same base and both formulae will make use of a half. The only difference will be the height. This justifies the use of the second method. So if we could have seen that from the start, the bases are the same. Right, and the only difference will be the heights. So we could have taken out half of the base as a common factor initially, then subtracting the heights and progressing as we have done on a few occasions, because we have similar problems when we were working with the percentages in part B and probably part A, and we have solved the problem based on the fact that we are able to find something common that we could take out as a factor, but we did not actually execute that process. We just made use of the same principle. B is due north of A. Right. C is due east of B. Go east, we see C. AB is equal to BC. AB is equal to BC. What is the bearing of A from C. We are required to take the bearing from C. The angle will be located at C. Considering that bearing is taken in a clockwise direction beginning at north, we need to place a north line at C. So the bearing is to be taken from C. That means we are looking at A from C, and we need to determine the angle that we would have observed if we are looking at A from C. In order to do that, we have to have a north line at C, because the angle that is representing the bearing needs to go in a clockwise direction beginning at north. So we will have to begin by including north. So there it is, north at C. The angle that we are concerned with is the one that goes in a clockwise direction beginning at north and is in reference to the line that goes from C to A. So the angle that we're talking about is the one that begins in a clockwise direction from north. Right, it goes in a clockwise direction beginning at north, and it is in reference to this line that goes from C to A. Right. That is your angle. Consecutive cardinal directions are right angled to each other, and AB is equal to BC. We therefore have two isosceles right-angled triangles. Now what do we mean when we say consecutive cardinal directions? We mean that since we say north, east, south, and west, north and east are right-angled to each other, east and south are right-angled to each other, south and west are right angles to each other. So that is what we mean. Also, this AB is equal to BC. Therefore, we have isosceles right-angled triangle. So the two triangles that we have here are isosceles triangles, and they are right-angled. Do not forget that the consecutive directions are right-angled to each other, and it is said in the statement of the problem that BC is equal to AC. So there are your right angles. In an isosceles right-angled triangle, the two smaller angles are equal to 45 degrees. So how do we know that they are 45 degrees? Because in the right-angled triangle, one angle is 90 degrees already. It is isosceles, that means these two angles are equal. So we will subtract 90 from 180, and that angle, which is of course another 90 degrees, will be shared equally among the other two angles. So we have 80 minus 90, and the result to be divided by 2. 180 minus 90 is 90, and then we divide 90 by 2, that is 45. So all of these small angles in the isosceles right-angled triangle will turn out to be 45 degrees, every single one of them. Angles on a straight line is equal to 180 degrees. Remembering, of course, that we are trying to determine this angle that goes in a clockwise direction to that line. Right, so angle on a straight line is 180 degrees. Add the two angles in the region that is indicating the bearing. So the bearing is indicated by this angle here. And of course we can see that one angle is 180 degrees and the other is 45 degrees. 180 plus 45 is equal to 225 degrees. A candidate may make a mistake and take the bearing of C from A instead. My students generally make that mistake. They take bearing from the wrong point. So when they say, what is the bearing of A from C? They go straight ahead and find this bearing of C from A. So what is the bearing of A from C? That is what we need. Not the bearing of C from A. So if the candidates go straight ahead and attempt to find the bearing of C from A, that is the angle that they would have found, and they would have no problem seeing that the answer is 0.45 degrees, of course, which is of course wrong. Right, that one is incorrect. All that is required in solving this problem is for us to expand the brackets and combine the like terms. We will begin by expanding the brackets. So we have 5x plus y. Then we have negative 3x minus y. Good. There we have a little bit larger or more macroscopic representation of the expression that we have in the statement of the problem. What do? We say first 5 multiplied by x, 5x. Then we say 5 multiplied by y is 5y. Then we proceed to the next set of brackets. We have negative 3 multiplied by x, not 3. Negative 3 multiplied by x, and that gives negative 3x. And as soon as we have moved from this one, some candidates will say 3 times negative y. They put down a negative 3y. But we are going to remain cognizant of the fact that we are saying negative multiplied by negative, and that will give a positive 3y. No doubt. Let us combine the like terms, if any. Of course, we have like terms. 5x minus 3x, and that is equal to 2x. Then we have, any more? Yes. 5y plus 3y, and that is 8y. Right there. Now, in the event that some candidates made a mistake, then they would have received 5y minus 3y is equal to 2y, and they would have received B for their answer, and then they would have made a complete meal of the problem. The correct answer is option C. Good. 2x plus 8y. The pie chart shows how a student use 10 hours per week for studying English E, Mathematics M, French F, and Geography G. The amount of hours spent studying French is approximately, and that is the beginning of our problem. We will find the number of hours spent studying French. We will attempt to solve the problem with logic and common sense. With the way that the information is given in this pie chart, there cannot be any other approach to the problem that is worthwhile. So we will not try to use our old methods of 360 degrees and making use of all those angles and also the entire angle of a revolution, because we do not have it right there. So we have information that requires us to be a little more innovative, and that we are prepared to do. The entire pie represents 10 hours. The lower half must therefore represent 5 hours. So the entire thing is 10 hours. Half of it must represent 5 hours. As we can see, those two are in the lower half. They are represented by 5 hours. In the lower half, we have x plus 4x, as we can see. X plus 4x is equal to 5x. Therefore, the lower half, which is 5 hours, is represented by 5x. Good, 5 hours, 5x. Each x is an hour. So we have 4 right there, so we have 4 hours. French is represented by 4x. The time allotted to it must be 4 hours. Why? Because we have already established that each hour is represented by x. Option D is correct. The table shows the relationship between the number of sides and the number of diagonals of a polygon. What is the value of n? That is what we really need to know, the value of n. There. And we have the number of sides, number of diagonals. What is the value of n? The number in the sides column are consecutive naturals. There's no problem seeing that. So we have consecutive natural numbers in the sides column. Let us attempt to establish a relationship between the consecutive numbers in the diagonals column. So we need to establish a relationship. If we do not know a relationship between consecutive numbers, then we will not be able to get the correct answer. When attempting to establish number patterns, the first approach should be to find the difference between consecutive elements. So that is the first attempt that you do. Try to find the difference. Some other patterns are very obvious, like you will see 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36. Right? You can see that we have square numbers there. So some patterns are obvious. This pattern might not be so obvious to most students. Therefore, we say find the difference between consecutive elements. So what do? We take the difference between 5 and the one above, and that is 5 minus 2 is 3. Then we go down and we say the difference between the 9 and the 5 is 4. Then we move down some more. The difference between the 14 and the 9 is 5, as we have it right there. Can we see a pattern? Of course. 3, 4, 5. What simpler pattern is there? It is clear that the difference between consecutive numbers is increasing by 1 all the time, as we have it right there. And of course, no doubt, 5 is the last one. So we are at 5. The difference between the other two must be 6. So we are at 5. So we have 3, 4, 5. The difference between the other two must be 6. Right. So we have established that we need to add 6 to the next one in order to get this one. So 14 plus 6 is 20, because the difference between the two of them is 6. Now the difference between the other two should be 7. So the difference between 20 and the other one is 7. Therefore, the one that is down here has to be 27, which is the result of adding 20 and 7. Right. Then we need to have a difference of 8. So the next difference is 8. So we have 27 plus 8 is equal to 35. Right. And the correct answer is option D. No doubt. 7 times the product of two numbers A and B may be written as... We need to take 7 times something. 7 times the product of A and B. This means that whatever we will have next must be multiplied by 7. Right, so 7 times the product of two numbers. Whatever we are going to have next must be multiplied by 7. Multiplication is commutative. We may multiply by 7 before or after. So let us indicate that we are multiplying by 7, and let us do it immediately before. There we have it. 7 is being multiplied by the product of two numbers A and B. Product is the result of multiplication. We therefore need to multiply A and B. A multiplied by B is equal to AB. So that is what we have right there. 7 times the product of A and B. 7 multiplied by AB. In algebra, when symbols follow each other without a sign separating them, the arithmetic operation that we assume is multiplication. The expression will therefore be the same without the multiplication sign. So we can just write that without the multiplication sign as 7AB. The correct answer is option A. No harm. There is nothing to it. We have this expression. A function f of x is 3x squared plus 4x plus 5. Then f of negative 2 is equal to, in finding f of negative 2, we need to take the function f, there we have it, and what do we do next? For each occurrence of x in f, we substitute the value of negative 2. We have f of x and we need f of 2. Nothing will change except that the x is replaced by negative 2 and the expression is simplified. Replace the x by negative 2, that is what we get. And we are going to simplify now. What do we say first? Right. Square negative 2, we get a positive 4, with or without the sign. So we may put the plus sign there, or we may not put it. So, positive 4. When we square a negative 2, we get a positive 4. Then, what do? We say 4 multiplied by negative 2, and that will give us a negative 8. No problem seeing that the 5 will go back as it is. Then, of course, 3 multiplied by 4 is 12. So, 12 minus 8 plus 5. 12 minus 8 is 4. And then we add 5 to that, and the answer is 9. So, f of negative 2 is equal to 9. The correct answer is option C. The area of the trapezium is 22 centimeters squared. What is the value of x? Of course, we need to know how to find the area of the trapezium, but we are not finding the area. We know the area already. So we need to find what is the length of this side right here, and that we are prepared to determine. The area of a trapezium is given by area is equal to half base then the sum of h1 and h2, or b over 2, in brackets we have h1 plus h2, so we are multiplying half of b by the sum of h1 and h2. h1 and h2 are the two parallel sides, and b is the perpendicular distance between the two parallel sides. So we have the two parallel sides here indicated by the arrow that we have, and of course we have the perpendicular distance between the two parallel sides right there, and of course we have that marked with the perpendicular sign. So there we have our formula. All we need to do is what? Substitute h1 and h2, the two parallel sides, this one and this one, and b is for that one. So there you have h1 and h2, the two parallel sides, and no doubt we have b, the perpendicular distance between the two parallel sides. So where we have b, we have 4, and h1 and h2 will be x and 7 in any order. So 4 over 2 x plus 7. Then we are going to do our simplification. But at first, we need to be aware or reminded or make use of the fact that area is 22 centimeters as we have it right here. So for the area, we have 22. Right, so nothing changes except that the area is replaced with 22. Then what do? 4 divided by 2 is equal to 2. So we are saying 4 divided by 2 right there. Right. So we have this thing flattened right there. Next, divide both sides by 2. If you divide both sides by 2, this is gone, and this will turn out to be 11. So 11 is equal to x plus 7. What number is added to 7 and the result is 11? Come on, everybody knows that. We do not need to go at length to solve such a measly equation. So we will not go to Timbuktu and back just to solve this measly equation. What number do you add to 7 and the result is 11? The answer is 4. Why can't we see? And that is represented by option C. There should really be no difficulty in solving this problem. In the trapezium, the parallel sides are marked with arrows, and the perpendicular distance between them is also marked with a set of perpendicular lines. So we have the arrows indicating the parallel sides, we have the perpendicular sides. So there's no problem identifying them, and no problem solving this problem. Therefore, now we have an equation and we need to find the value of x. 2 times all of x minus 1 minus 3x is equal to 6. In solving this equation, we first need to expand the brackets. So let us expand the brackets. 2 times x is 2x. 2 multiplied by negative 1, negative 2. And what do you know? The negative 3x will go back, and the equal 6 as it is will also be there. The x's will remain on the left hand side, and the negative 2, which is a constant, will be transposed from left to right, a change of sign from negative to positive. So this negative 2 will be transposed, and of course the x's will remain on the left hand side. So we have 2x minus 3x, 2x minus 3x. We have 6 plus 2, this 2 being transposed, 6 plus 2. So we'll have eventually negative x is equal to 8. We may divide both sides by negative 1, or we may multiply both sides by negative 1. The result will be the same. All signs will be changed. So we may arrive at our x by multiplying both sides by negative 1, or by dividing both sides by negative 1. The effect will be the same. X is equal to negative 8. The correct answer is option B. Which of the relations is represented by the graph that we have right there? We have a graph here. Which one of these is represented by the graph? I hope that everybody realized that the graph that we have is the graph of a straight line. So everything that we will do will have some relation to the equation of a straight line. The graph is a straight line whose general formula is y is equal to mx plus c. C is the y-intercept that we can see is equal to negative 2. We will therefore proceed to find the gradient. So y is equal to mx plus c, and we know that m is the gradient and c is the constant, the y-intercept, where the line crosses the y-axis. That we can see is right here at this point, negative 2. The gradient of AB may be quickly calculated, dividing the vertical height of AB by the horizontal dimension, the horizontal distance. So there we have our fraction bar to begin with, and we have our y should be there and x down there. So there we have our y indicated, and the vertical shift is by 2 units. So we go there, 2 units. Right. And the horizontal one is by 4 units. As we can see from 0 to 4. No harm, no problem seeing that. So we have 2 over 4. What do we need to mention or to consider? Do not forget that a line that slopes in the direction of the uplifted right hand has a positive gradient. So uplifted right hand, positive gradient. There you have this. George Overson is showing us the uplifted right hand and showing us that the gradient of a line that slopes in that direction is positive. Thank you, George Overson. The gradient is positive with or without the sign, and the fraction may be reduced by a common factor of 2. So we do not have to have a positive sign here. We know that it is positive with or without the positive sign, and then we may reduce that by a common factor of 2. So we have the gradient is equal to positive positive a half. What next? The general formula is y is equal to mx plus c. That is the general formula. Y equals mx plus c. M is the gradient, which is equal to a half, and the y-intercept is -2. So we will substitute the half for the gradient m and the -2 for the constant c. And let's substitute those values into the equation and see what the result will be. There is your equation. Y is equal to mx plus c, and half will go and your -2. Simplify the brackets on the right hand side. That is what we are going to do. Simplify this plus a -2. We know that that is a -2. Right, and that's all there is to it. Y is equal to a half x minus 2. Flatten the equation, that is, remove the denominator by multiplying each term by 2. That is what we are going to do. We do not have any denominator in this one, or this, or any other. So we are going to get rid of that denominator by multiplying everything by 2. So we will say 2 times y is 2y. 2 times a half is 1. 1x may be written as x. We do not need to write that 1. And then 2 times -2 will give -4. So we will have 2y, the 2's will cancel here, and 2 times 2 is 4. So we will have 2y is equal to x minus 4. But what do we know? Zeros. In our options, the right-hand sides are equal to 0. We will therefore transpose the terms to the left-hand side. The signs of the term will ultimately change. So, since we do not have anything except 0 on our right-hand sides, then we will ensure that our equation that we have here conforms to the presentations that we have in the options. So, x transposed to a negative x and -4 transposed to a positive 4. So 2y minus x plus 4 is equal to 0, and that is our correct answer. The correct answer is option D. I like these distractors. Right. If you made a mistake and you found the equation of the line to be 2, then you have your problem cut out for you right there. And if you made a mistake and did not change the sign on transposition, we have your options right there for you. So any incorrect move you made in solving this problem, you would have been amply rewarded with an option that conforms to your mistake. The correct answer is option D, and we have that indicated right there. The exterior angles and the interior angles of a polygon are equal. How many sides does the polygon have? The interior angle I and the exterior angle E of a polygon or of polygons are always on a straight line. So there we have some, right? So you have your interior, exterior, straight line. So those are always on a straight line. Your interior angle and your exterior angle are always on a straight line. That means they have to give 180 degrees. As we observe at sight, in the polygon that we have, the interior angles are not equal. Right. However, sight will not suffice, especially that we cannot conclude that the polygons are drawn to scale. So at sight, it will appear as if those angles are not equal. But we cannot conclude since they are not drawn to scale. But we could use our knowledge, of mathematics and conclude that they are not equal. If two angles on a straight line are equal, each must be 90 degrees. 180 degrees must be shared equally between them. So if you have two angles on a straight line and they are equal, then angles on a straight line 180 degrees must be shared equally between the two angles. Therefore, the angle will be divided by 2. One will be 90 degrees and the other will be 90 degrees. Right. So that was the purpose of showing you the interior and exterior angles of a polygon are on a straight line. That's the purpose of doing that. So by showing you that there are angles on a straight line, then we can say if they are equal, then they are equal to 90 degrees. So the exterior angles, going back to the statement of the problem, the exterior angles and the interior angles of a polygon are equal. How many sides does the polygon have? So we know that there are angles on a straight line. If they are equal, one must be 90 and the other one must be 90. We must use our general knowledge of mathematics and declare that polygons with interior angles equal to 90 degrees are quadrilaterals. Right. Because if they are equal, that is the exterior and interior angle, if they are equal, then each angle is 90 degrees. The polygon with interior angles equal to 90 degrees will no doubt be a quadrilateral, 4 sides. Right. So there is your answer, option B. So let me see if I can make a quick summary of this. Interior and exterior angles are angles on a straight line, 180 degrees. If they are equal, they are both equal to 90 degrees. If the interior angles are equal to 90 degrees, the polygon is no doubt a quadrilateral. So we have 4-sided figure. But we will not take that for granted. We know for sure that if all of the angles of a polygon are equal to 90 degrees, we are sure that that one is a polygon. But we can show that by calculation also. We have already concluded that if the interior and exterior angles of a polygon are equal, then they are both equal to 90 degrees. So let us use the formula for the sum of the interior angles of a polygon to determine the number of sides that the polygon will have. The total internal angles of a polygon is given by the formula 180 to be multiplied by n minus 2 when n is the number of sides. To find the size of each angle, of course, this is the sum of all of the angles. So if you have the sum of all of the angles of a polygon, how do you find the size of each angle? You will divide the sum of the angles by the number of angles. So to find the size of each angle, we divide by the number of them, which is n. So we are dividing the total of the angles by the number of angles in order to find the size of one angle. But we know that the size of the angle is 90. So we know that each angle is already 90 degrees, but we do not know the number of sides. So let's say we do not know the number of sides, but we know the size of each angle. And of course, we have the formula for the total number, or for the total of all of the interior angles right there. Let us flatten the equation by multiplying by n and expand the brackets at the same time. So 2 steps in one. We will have 90 multiplied by n, which is 90n. We will have, expanding the bracket now, we will have 180 multiplied by n, which is 180n. And 180 multiplied by negative 2, we have negative 360. So 90 times n is 90n. Now we expand the bracket. 180 times n is 180n. 180 multiplied by negative 2, negative 360. Transpose 90n to the right hand side and 360 to the left hand side. Since the n we have right here and we want n to be on the left hand side at any rate, we could have caused the 180n to be transposed to this side, but that would cause the n to be negative. That is why we opted to take the 90n to this side where we will have 180n minus 90n, which is still positive. This negative 360 will be transposed to the other side. It will be a positive 360. So we have 360 on the left hand side. We have 180n minus 90n on the right hand side. Simplify the right hand side. We have 360 is equal to 90n. Of course, to find the value of n, we need to divide by 90. So divide both sides by 90. That will cause 90 to be eliminated from the left hand side. And 360 divided by 90 is equal to 4. So we have 4 is equal to n. So n is equal to 4, as we imagined before. Which of the following shapes is a square pyramid? Which one is a square pyramid? A pyramid is a solid with one face that is called the base, and the other sides have a common vertex. So for the pyramid, one side is called, or one face is called the base, and then the other have a common vertex. The others will have a common vertex. The only two shapes that fit the description are A and D. So let us mark one face as the base. Right. So we have one base here and another base right here. The other faces will have a common vertex. So as we can see, in each case, the other faces meet at a point. They have a common vertex. And there we have the two vertices. Right. Solid D has a triangular base. It cannot be the correct answer, although both of them are pyramids. We are looking for a square pyramid. The base of A is a quadrilateral. Because of the three-dimensional effect, its obvious appearance is not square. Having some familiarity with 3D images, that is how a square usually appears. Besides, there is no other pyramid with a quadrilateral base. So we are sure that that is the one that has a square base, because although it does not look square, in 3D we know that it's not going to look square. Right. And of course, we know for sure that it is the one that we are talking about because it is the only one with a quadrilateral base. So the correct one is option A. A is called a square pyramid because its base is square. D is a triangular pyramid for obvious reasons. B is a cube, or at least a cuboid. Along with C, they are the two prisms. Prisms are solids with uniform cross sections. B is a rectangular prism and C is a triangular prism. So we are just giving you some refreshers in the solid figures, which is a pyramid, what type of pyramid, and also we have taken a look at prisms in short.